You are listening to the Quantum Hologram Matrix
on the SVU network, transmitting universal knowledge.
You are listening to the Quantum Hologram Matrix, and this is rev-john-polk. I have two very special guests with me tonight, Clifford Mahooty, Zuni elder, but first we want to introduce Dr. Lynn Keatai, CEO and executive producer of Phoenix Lights Network, phoenixlights.net. She only has a limited time as she's about to go on another show shortly after this. So, Dr. Keatai, please tell us about the Phoenix Lights Network, etc.
In a nutshell, I tell you, there is so much to this story, and I am a medical doctor, stayed anonymous for 7 years after what is now hailed in March 13th, 1997, as the most witnessed, the most documented, and most important anomalous aerial sightings in modern history, which really prompted me, after having a close sighting 2 years before and capturing 35-millimeter photographs, which have been authenticated as true unknowns by military and university optical scientists and experts, and then capturing the same mile-wide formation, and I'll get to the details because they're awesome, mile-wide formation of lights that were head-on, turning into a V-shape at a distance, when this 95 one was very close to the home, 3 amber orbs in a pyramid formation, and it was so unnerving not having an explanation for the close sighting that I called around, found air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport who said the same thing at the same time. And this is really important data. If anybody's by their computer and can go on the Phoenix Lights Network website, if you Google Phoenix Lights, it usually comes up first or second with Wikipedia. And I have to say Wikipedia is filled with mis and disinformation. That was one of the main reasons I came forward after 7 years of anonymity, because the air traffic controllers said that this object was actually hovering over Class B restricted airspace, about 1,000 feet altitude, turned against the wind while I was shooting it. The pictures are right there on the photo page, and then elevated slowly and moved behind South Mountain, which is the south of the airport. And when I asked them what was it, there was silence, and then one of them says, "Beats me." I said, "You're air traffic controllers. You're supposed to know what's in our airspace." They had no clue, ruled out every conventional possibility. We kept in contact up until including March 13th, where thousands of people were outside looking up at the sky for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, when they also caught a glimpse of mile to 2 mile wide and larger. Peter Davenport, the head of the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle, Washington, who got thousands of reports, stated recently in a presentation that one of them was 8 miles, because there were not only orb formations, as the air traffic controllers would describe, that seemed to be attached to something. And you would hear that again by thousands of people during the mass sighting, where there was a force field holding them in rock-solid formation, or actual craft. And there were 10 different crafts. The information is just awesome if people actually look at it, because if you go to the GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project, on the Phoenix Lights Network website, you'll see, after a 12-year compilation of thousands of reports from all different entities, that, you there? Hello? Bless you. There was either one craft that could morph into looking differently, or the perspective from where the person was standing, or an actual parade of 10 different craft. And they look very different, I have to say. There's V-shaped and triangle-shaped and delta-shaped and boomerang-shaped and even dish-shaped. Some of them split in two and shot straight up, and the technology was incredible. And we're talking 30 miles an hour just gliding right over people's heads, rooftop level, without even making a sound. Some taking off at blink speed without dispersing the air. Others were seen to have these orbs, these balls of light, detached from the main object, go out into the environment and redock with it. I mean, the technology was just incredible. And actually, there's a report, a call from a Luke Air Force, alleged Luke Air Force crewman, at 3 a.m. the next morning, that one of these mile-wide craft was hovering right over central Phoenix, and military jets from Luke Air Force were sent out to intercept it and get gun camera film, which we heard that they did, and there were civilians that saw this. And as they got close, the lights dimmed, and then the craft actually disappeared, freaking out one of the pilots, by the way. There is so much to this story, and it wasn't just one or two events, as you would hear on Wikipedia and other places. It was many events for over a dozen hours, and not just in Arizona, but in New Mexico, in California, and Nevada as well. The story as it unfolded, and unfortunately I won't have time tonight, so I hope people will pick up the new edition of the book, the 20th anniversary edition of the Phoenix Light, The Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone, the third edition, as well as the new edition of the documentary, which has won over a dozen International Film Festival awards. And we have astronaut Edgar Mitchell, as well as a 911 police operator and pilots and police and so forth in it that are just, the witness accounts are so heartfelt and so detailed. Something very, very extraordinary happened here. And just this past weekend, it was the 20th anniversary of the mass sighting, we released a graphic novel coloring book called The Phoenix Lights, UFOs, and Crop Circles Coloring Book, Graphic Novel Adventures of SUFO, Field Observer, and Hugh, H-U-G-H, UFO. It is amazing for all ages. It's got my pictures in it. It's got the different crafts to draw, as well as the locations, the exact locations, and over 80 crop circles and games and puzzles. It's really amazing. So I hope that people will take a look at them, as well as the website, Phoenix Lights Network website and Facebook page, packed with information. And we just updated the news page, which is loaded with information. It's easy to read articles and TV news reports. It's really been an incredible journey. But one of the things I wanted to say before Clifford comes on is that there is a very strong connection between the Phoenix Lights and the Native Americans and indigenous cultures. In fact, I don't believe in coincidence anymore. 6 months before the mass sighting, I was invited to present my substance abuse prevention education program. That's what makes this very ironic, because I have dedicated my life's work for over 40 years. If you care to look at my bio, you can see what my journey through this amazing life has been. But I actually produced video and workbook curriculums after I worked with NBC and USA Cable doing health reporting since 1976 to get the truth about vital health issues into the classroom. Curriculum, Discovery Education is distributing them as we speak on AIDS and teen pregnancy and substance abuse. So when this fell in my lap, and I had no interest or knowledge in this topic at all before we had our close sighting, and I captured 35-millimeter photographs, the only person that we know of that has 35-millimeter photographs at these anomalous aerial phenomena are in the negative, and they've been analyzed extensively. No answer to what they cannot be explained or denied. But at any rate, once thousands of people saw what I saw, I pushed my whole medical career aside to try to find a logical explanation. It's 20 years later, and I've yet to find it. But I ended up with a 750-page journal of incredible data that I squeezed the best of what I found into 250 pages. And again, it's just went into its third print. But what makes it really special, not only the technology being so advanced that we haven't seen anything that comes close to that in 20 years, and you would think that we would have with everything that's happening, especially in the Middle East. But what also got me is that 6 months before the mass sighting, I was invited to present my substance abuse prevention program at the Gila Bend Indian Reservation, which is in between, the South Mountain and the Estrella Mountain Range, which we can see from our mountainside home. We have a panoramic view of the city skyline. We are very blessed, and we see whatever pops up out there, whether it's planes or helicopters or streetlights or fires or whatever. And at any rate, I was invited to present my substance abuse program and help them out. And about 6 months later, when the mass sighting happened, I realized, and anybody that goes to the photo page can see quite clearly, the data speaks for itself, that these phenomena kept popping up right where South Mountain and the Estrella Mountains intersect, and that's where their very sacred ground is located. So I called them up, and I said, did anybody see strange lights on March 13th? And they started to giggle. And I said, is that funny? And they said, are you kidding? We've been looking up at them for centuries. We call them sky people, light beings. It's part of their culture. I had no idea. And that really set me on a journey to find that aspect of the whole thing. And here I find that indigenous cultures worldwide believe in other, I'm sure Clifford will talk about this, other intelligences. Some believe that they're spirit world or whatever, but the bottom line is that they come to give us comfort and motivation and knowledge and inspiration. And I certainly have been inspired, I have to tell you, since I saw the close orbs up close and personal 2 years before the mass sighting. At any rate, they also said that that's how the estrellas got its name. It means star in Spanish, and the lore of the day and, the history, because this has been happening since human documentation began. There's petroglyphs of the same exact triangle or pyramid of 3 orbs on South Mountain, as well as the boomerang shape of one of the videos that was captured, mine being the 3 endpoints of a V or triangle over Class B airspace once again. So this is a really important aspect, the Native American culture connection of the Phoenix Lights. And when you look at the data in totality, the other thing that really gets you, number one, the Arizona Navajo Rangers, which actually also spoke at our big event, which is sold out for the 13th year on Sunday, and Clifford was also part of it. He was wonderful, and he has so much knowledge and so many wonderful things to share, are actually studying and investigating these phenomena up in the Navajo Range, and they had a big sighting the day before, which they thought would really get big news, and then the mass sighting on March 13th eclipsed that. But there is a very strong Native American connection with the Phoenix Lights also, which is very interesting, is there has not been one report, not one, and you'll see a couple of movies in the last couple of years that are supposedly based on the Phoenix Lights mass sighting that are totally fictional horror stories, which is really sad because it really muddies the water of what really happened here, which was a very benevolent, non-threatening sighting. In fact, people got telepathic messages not to worry. 6 months before the mass sighting, the movie Independence Day was very popular. And children, because we're so inundated with threat, and harm, from Hollywood, from the media. When we see somebody, in our documentary, Dr. Gary Schwartz, who's the head of the Consciousness Study Department at the University of Arizona, says very poignantly that, if you're inundated with this negative, threatening scenario, how do you think you're going to react when you see something massive and strange coming towards you? And kids, who are usually the first ones to see this mile-wide V coming towards them, jumped up and down, Independence Day. But as it got close, a calmness took over everyone, a connectiveness to the phenomena that once it passed, and I'm telling you, people were in joy and in awe. It was just so opposite from any kind of a threat or harm. If anything, it was just, they felt blessed that they were seeing it. And when it passed, the kids wanted their parents to, chase after it as well, and some did, by the way. So that's a really, really interesting scenario with the Phoenix Lights, which doesn't happen. And again, we're not just talking about lights. We're talking about craft as well. And that doesn't happen with blimps or balloons or flares or whatever they come up with. It really touched people at a very, very deep level and a spiritual level. In fact, it changed people forever. We're still getting, a week does not pass that I don't get an email. And that was one of the other reasons I came forward after 7 years of anonymity and intense research looking for a logical explanation. Because not only did I want to set the record straight, but I wanted to let people know who are out there that have had an experience. And most anomalies can be explained. Only a small percentage cannot. But just because we don't have the technology yet to definitively define what these things are, it doesn't mean they're not real. We may just be looking on the AM dial for an FM frequency. So it's time we get this topic out in the open and we address it and accept it and study it so we can find out who's driving these things as well as move forward in our own evolution. But it's really important for me as a physician to let people know that they're not crazy, and also that it's really important to share. When you have a paranormal experience, it's real to you. And if you don't share it, even with one person, so I urge people to either message me on Facebook at Phoenix Lights Network, Facebook page, or the website, the phoenixlights.net, Phoenix Lights Network website. And even if you just, and I take confidentiality very seriously, by the way, even if it's just one person that you share with, it's cathartic. It's healing. So as a scientist, as an educator, as an experiencer, and as a physician, finally, after much soul searching, because I did not want to come forward, the accepted and official explanation, which is the only thing they ever came up with, was because there were a handful of videos, including mine, that was hard evidence. They had to debunk that. And the only thing they ever came up with was that it was military flares, even though in video it looks very different. In the true unknowns, it's much smaller, they're white, they flicker. But if you really look at them, the formations are very compelling.
All right, did we lose Dr. Lynn?
But anyway, yeah. Hello? Hello, Annie?
Did we lose Dr. Lynn?
John, she's still there, sir.
I'm here. Or can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Hello?
Can you hear us, John? John.
I hope the audience is hearing.
Well, we are streaming, and you are very much talking, so you're still there and in the moment. Okay. So please continue.
Well, anyway, I'm trying to get a lot in.
And you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
Well, I apologize because there's so much to this story, and I just want to give people a little taste of it so that they'll look further, because that's why I came forward. If I can be a credible voice so people actually look at the data, then I've done my job. And in good conscience, I couldn't stick what I compiled. It's just too important, and people can decide for themselves. And again, if you go on the news page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, it is packed with information, including the fact that one day after a USA Today article came out, months later, June 18th, the former Governor Symington actually called a press conference to reveal the culprit. He was forced to say something because there was no investigation or explanation prior to that, which was uncanny. And he comes marching out, one of his aides in a giant alien head costume, and made a mockery of it, which was not a joke to the people that saw it. It was really disconcerting. And I called every military base. I have some of their conversations, which are quite comical in the book. And a month later, I get a call from, and I'm going to get a call any second from another radio station, so I'll make this quick. But anyway, I get a call that they discovered that some of the, from the Air National Guard, that the Maryland Air National Guard was in town sending off flares in Operation Snowbird, which means diversionary tactical maneuvers, which it's been a diversion ever since. And that must be what some people saw. Meanwhile, I asked, well, were they here in January? And the head of the PR said no. I said, are you sure? She said, absolutely not. I said, well, I have 35-millimeter photographs of the same exact phenomena that I took video of during the mass sighting in the same location that air traffic controllers confirmed was over Class B restricted airspace, 1,000 feet altitude. And she says, you never told me that. I said, besides that, I said, you're saying the flares that cannot keep a formation, drift and drop with the wind, have huge smoke trails that are illuminated by the flare itself, and not one person described that saw the true unknowns, by the way, traverse the entire state in a rock-solid, equidistantly spaced V formation for hours. And she says, I have a call coming in. I'll get back to you. Well, I'm still waiting. Anyway, just to make it really brief, as the story unfolded, 3 years later, a former councilwoman was running for Secretary of State on a platform to get answers for the Phoenix Lights, and she asked for a reenactment. And if you go to the news page, in the middle of the news page, you'll see the Arizona Family CNN affiliates video of that flare drop. It was a joke. I mean, here they announced it. It was publicly announced. They tried to reenact it and failed. And that really put a nail in the coffin for the flare theory. They have never been reenacted or recreated and never been explained, and they never addressed the craft. The other one point I wanted to make is that after the 10th anniversary, the former governor who had mocked the sighting in 97 came forward to say that he actually saw one of these mile-wide craft. He disclosed that he saw it bravely, and that as a military and pilot, it was definitely not flares, and it was otherworldly. So I'll leave you with that, and I hope that, there's so much more to this story, and the story has evolved, and that's why I just came out with the 20th anniversary 2017 edition of the book, The Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone. The DVD that's loaded with bonus features. Astronaut Edgar Mitchell talks about the cover-up, and we have a 911 police operator and so much more in the Phoenix Lights Beyond Top Secret, and the coloring book graphic novel that all are on Amazon.com. I hope that you'll visit the website as well as the Phoenix Lights Network Facebook page and keep looking up.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the Quantum Hologram Matrix, and we will definitely get all that information out to the listeners. And we would like to look forward to hearing more when you have more time.
That would be wonderful. I really appreciate your interest, and I hope people will seek out more information because there's a lot more to this story. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Well, thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, bye-bye, and enjoy Clifford. He's fabulous. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye. All right, so there you go. Dr. Lynn Katai, and quite an interesting subject matter of the Phoenix Lights. I guess what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick pause right now as we try to reset a few things here on our end, and then we're going to bring in Clifford. And so don't touch that dial and don't go anywhere. Clifford, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
You are listening to the Quantum Hologram Matrix
on the SVU network.
Yeah, we're taking a break, and we're trying to get a hold.
Every region of the
trying to
world,
get John back
and
on the
most
phone.
countries can go back in their history and trace their origins, traditions, and religions to a creator god, or an angel from the sky, the stars, heaven, or even underground from the underworld. This is the common story of extraterrestrials.
Well, why didn't he call the
planet.
800 number?
My name is Reverend John M. Polk. I am an international metaphysical minister.
Sure, I know. I'm
a
just
Reiki
giving you
master teacher.
Anyway,
and a medium.
Clifford, my name is Jim. I go by Space Boy, and my other better half is Sirlana, and we produce John's show and some other shows on our network called the SBU Network. And so that's a little bit behind who we are. And obviously, Reverend John Polk,
Mitchell Foundation,
and I guess we're
for
trying
research
to patch him
into
in right now.
extraterrestrial encounters, or FREE, is a not-for-profit academic research institute established by the late Apollo astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Harvard astrophysicist Dr. Rudy Shield, and various PhD scientists and lay researchers. FREE is researching what is consciousness. In other words, what is the true nature of our multidimensional reality? By undertaking cross-comparative research on individuals that are having various types of contact with non-human intelligence. To participate in FREE's research study and to learn more about their various support and educational programs, please visit their website at experiencer.org. That is EXPERIENCER.org. Thank you.
Oh, John, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
This is Reverend John M. Polk, and you're listening to the Quantum Hologram Matrix right here on Spaceboy Universe, SBUnetwork.com. And please forgive me, there was no technical mistake by way of my producers. My internet fell out, so that was on me, and I'm trying to figure that out as we speak. So do we have Dr. Katai with us still, or did she have to leave?
Actually, she had to leave, but we have the main event tonight. He's all yours, sir.
Excellent. Clifford Mahooty, how are you, sir? Glad to have you on the show.
I'm doing excellent.
Excellent. So please forgive me, the last 5 minutes, I don't know what y'all were talking about, but I would have to assume that you were speaking about the Phoenix Lights at the conference in which you attended and spoke of recently. Can you expand upon that, or have you already covered all that?
Well, she covered, Dr. Gitai covered all the main points of that annual meeting that we have every year. But the thing that really impresses a lot of people about that meeting is that every year is new evidence and more information that has been gathered by Dr. Gitai, and the recent movie that she made was quite outstanding and had all the facts of what happened way back 20 years ago on the 13th of March. So and we had a good audience, and there were some very, very good questions. And I think one of the things that expanded in recent times is that we've included, or she has included, people like myself and my other Indian brothers, the indigenous people, especially the Navajo Nation people. And there's a lot of revealing that's been made of what actually occurred during that time. And myself, I have been informed by my own people of the Zuni Indian Reservation, which is right next to the Navajo Reservation in New Mexico. And they're now coming out and saying, yes, we did see a lot of back in 20 years ago, they were very skeptical at that time because of the times and the things that were happening, they were afraid to talk. But now it's a common occurrence, especially both those Indian reservations, that nothing is really secret anymore, not. And then the acceptance of some of us that have been talking about it for years have been kind of being accepted. So it was very exciting to hear the people Sunday when we had our meeting in Phoenix.
You know, one thing I did hear Dr. Gitai say before my internet fell out is that the Native American, more specifically the Pueblo tribes, are connected to the Phoenix Lights and other anomalous activity over the desert Southwest. Can you further explain that to our listeners tonight?
Well, one of the things that is part of our culture and our spirituality is that we have always known, or at least our ancestors thousands of years back have known about what we call our keepers, which are the sky people. Some people call them star people. But they've always been with us throughout the history of the Native American indigenous tribes. It doesn't make any difference what tribe it is, not only here in the United States, but clear down to Mexico, South America, and other tribes on the other side of the world. And one of the things that we have really recently come across with a good explanation is the petroglyphs. I had a meeting this morning with two of the best petroglyphs recorders, one a MUFON director from Utah, and one of the Arizona archaeology people that has been photographing these petroglyphs throughout Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. And I have seen those throughout my years, and it was very interesting those times that I first looked at them when I was still a young person way back in the 50s and 60s. And so I would ask my grandfathers what they meant. They said, oh, those are the sky people. And there are different types of configurations, and especially the saucer type, and also the formation like the V formations type and the triangular type. So I'm familiar with that. It's also included in our religion and our reenactments of our culture almost on a yearly basis.
You know, I was I was watching Ancient Aliens, and I was watching the one Ancient Aliens in the Old West, and you were speaking of how the star ancestors taught the American Indians where you came from, and that you were to carry out their rituals. And, that is the common story of extraterrestrials seeding our planet and giving us rituals, giving us deities to worship. And, it's a common theme all around the world. And in effect, the rituals, the dances, the chants, the prayers, it is all to, basically worship them. But when you worship them, they love you for doing so. And, they enable you to have fertile life where there may not be fertile life, especially in the desert Southwest. So tell us about how the star ancestors descended to this planet, and the American Indians taught you where you came from, and taught you about the rituals, the chants, the prayers, and even the dances that you do to actually bring about the energy of the gods with you.
Well, the common term that is used by all Southwest Pueblo tribes, the ones that are remaining now, in maybe about 10,000, 20,000 years ago, there were more Indian tribes out here in the Southwest, and all of them have the basis of being a land of creation, which is usually to the west. And in all Pueblos, they have their own emergence places where they, when the star people, or maybe for another term they use is that the alien people or the sky people, when they came to this planet, see, this was a water planet. And so when they first came here, probably millions of years ago, and they found that there was some life forms here, but the Indian people were not as advanced as they were maybe about even 2,000-3,000 years ago. So they sort of molded them into, or adjusted their body and their mind and their spirit into, so they could become functional, new type of individuals. And this is what we do in ceremonies, that we perform and recite those days when we were converted into modern day individuals, and also we reenact the ceremonies that they taught us, or at least our ancestors, thousands of years ago. And there's a lot of things that are directly connected with the human life and all the life forms, animal and plant forms on the planet, and they taught us how to take care of what is commonly termed as Mother Earth. And not only that, but they gave us the technology, which in a lot of ways are way advanced, and modern technology is now just coming to the surface of those practices. One of the things that is very prevalent throughout the whole globe is the monument structures that they built, and their main places of worship were based upon the water places, like springs, like where there's a lot of water coming from the earth. And those are places what we call to us human Indians, we call them the places of payment to those gods. So that's why we do a lot of different rituals. And of course, they set up a order system, which it's a real complex matrix system in terms of social application, family structure, clan system, kiva system, and of that whole massive complex systems. We also have the medicine society system, the Kachina system, which are the sky people connection, and we also have to go through initiation to be part of that reenactment of those Kachinas. Now, one of the things that is very hard to convince or even explain is that for these common practices done by the Southwest Indian tribes is that we are totally in connect with these forces or these beings, even though you can't see them. And so we also have rituals almost, well, on a daily basis that we talk to them. We have a lot of prayer systems. And later on, they had to go into a system of what they commonly known as a kiva. So they can be, especially when they settle down. In the beginning, thousands of years ago, they were always on a journey because they were looking for they were guided to those places where they're supposed to end up. And all Pueblo tribes out there in the Southwest have their journeys all in oral form. So we have to recite those periodically. We recite those, for example, in Zuni. The main event is in December, right before the winter solstice, and we reenact and we recite where we came from, how we came from, and also the different galaxies, the different planets of what where they originated and came to here. We did, according to my research, we did not come from those planets or those galaxies. The life was over here, and the sky people came over here and uplifted our things, like I said, the intelligence, the practices, even the body structure and body forms, and it's recited in many texts and in many prayer systems. So they are like our guardians. They're like our fathers. So the common term that we say is that we are actually part of the ET system. And then when we spend time here on the planet, we go back. A human soul never dies. The body dies. But so we go back there, and then we become those type of people. Again, it's a recycling type thing. So every time that there's a Kachina dance in the Pueblo, which is going on right now for the spring dances, when the dancers come into the plaza, they said that the grandfathers are coming in. And there's a lot of rituals that we all have to go through. And so they also, this time of the year, their main purpose is to bring rain and the seeds of the people, for the people, for their food. But all the time, they also have a order system which includes the love of each other, the love of all things nature, love of all mankind, and this is what we all hear when they sing to all the people. And those are the Kachinas are the ones that are in charge of those messengers. Are messengers from different parts of the universe in a way. And when you get into the real detail systems, they actually cite all the different constellations, and they're so numerous that I try to keep a track of them. And like I say, the matrix became so expounded that it was very impossible to take in all those different systems. Being a mathematician and engineer, it was just overpowering to me about how complex it is. So that's basically what it is. And on the planet itself, on the lands, the Star Brothers or the Sky people are the ones that actually chose those places where we eventually ended up. Zuni, for example, is right there in New Mexico, and there are absolutely no minerals around except good soil for good crops. But they also have a lot of sacred sites, and this is when the New Agers thing comes into play about vortices and sacred sites and direct connection. So these are placed all over the planet, but in particular, I have studied the Southwest because it's very complex. I'm 73 years old, and I've been studying since I was about 10 years old, and it's still a lot of things that has to be looked into because that's how complex it is.
You know, it's really fascinating. So another word for Kachina could be teacher. Is that correct?
That is correct. They're the ones that bring all the teachings of how to take care, again, like the planet, and also they also teach other ways of life to keep everything in balance. You know, they also have a psychological curing effect when they come and they sing those songs. And, you know, music is universal. And so there are different types of musicians type thing, using different instruments. In the old days, they used to have flutes. They use drums. They use rattles. But the main thing is the voice. And they tell you about what they're here for, how to take care of each other, and why they're here, and that's why it's a real celebration of spirituality and happiness among the people. And the direct connection is that there are beings of compassionate intelligence. There's a lot of people that have said that, well, you know, there's some bad ETs or malevolent, but most of the teachings that I have gone through is that they're all benevolent beings. But right now, in this day and age, there's a lot of things that are happening that are, because we have lost that connection, we do not perform as well, as periodically as we should. We also pray to them by prayer sticks, rituals, and even fasting. And so we go to those sacred places, and like, for example, Zuni is cyclic. They go to the springs where they because that's their doorways to the other world, to different worlds. And all the people in the village participate in all of those activities, one way or the other. So some of them are permanent for life positions with different orders. Other ones are like volunteer, but you'll always be in there for the rest of their life because you have now become a reenactment player of the societies. And this is really a very profound thing when you get into it, and it's very difficult to explain to somebody that's an outsider. And they also get into that connection with other forces and other beings, and they also perhaps go into different dimensions. So this is really and we have been practicing it for centuries. And one of the things that is quite prevalent, especially among the Hopi and Zuni, is that they have a year-round activity of different types of rituals. And but that's only one group. The Kachina people are only one group, the Star people connection. But there's other orders that are also directly related to spirituality in the healing arts, the medicine man system, the practitioners of the healing arts, and it involves all different ages of people, and because those are God-given practices that they help each other, and so this has been going on for centuries.
It's interesting. In the chat room, there's always some brilliant observations and brilliant comments and questions. And there's a gentleman, Kenneth. He reached out to me, I believe, through Facebook, and his story is pretty fascinating. And let me tell it to you real quick, and then see
Sure.
how that resonates with you. And I'm sure that you'll have something to comment about it. All right, thousands of years ago, the ancient ancestors ran from star people to the cliffsides because the star people were taking their children and women, and we 7 of us were taken backwards in time by the extraterrestrials. We were with the ancient Indian ancestors. This happened 37 years ago to Kenneth, and we were in many ceremonies. We became more than human. I'm in heaven and on earth at the same time. I have pictures of me in heaven and on earth at the same time with many spirits, and have pictures of the extraterrestrials that I have taken myself. We were recorded by ancient Indian ancestors on Prophecy Rock and many petroglyphs. I'm one of these very sacred people, and he wanted me to ask you about that and what your thoughts are on that.
Well, Prophecy Rock is the one that's over in Hopi. It's on the north side of the Hopi Mesas.
Okay.
There are actually people have actually experienced those type of incidents, and some of them are very reluctant to talk about it. But there has been some records, even way back, maybe 100, 200 years ago, of those things. Now, as far as the, what is it, like an abduction or that they went through, or what?
That's what it sounded like to me, but also a time travel kind of scenario, where he said that, he said he was on heaven and earth at the same time, and that he said we, so implying there was more than one of him taken at the same time. They became more than human. And then that's when he alluded to the Indian ancestors on Prophecy Rock and the many petroglyphs. But he knew I was going to do this show with you, and it was overly important that he wanted me to share this story with you and get your insight on it.
Yeah, there are many places, like over at Prophecy Rock. That's just one out of thousands. That other places out there that are commonly known, mostly by the Indian tribes, but people have actually experienced those type of phenomenon, even though that the land has been worked over, or like, for example, if the trees had grown over it, or if they put a lake on top of it, they're still in existence. I know of a lot of places in Zuni, where I'm from, that not only do the people have that type of connection, and I have been at a lot of different places where I have experienced the feeling of it. I don't know whether I was gone. I do not know, because when you're in solitude and you're meditating in a meditation stage, you don't really know until you sort of like waking up, and then you ask yourself, where was I at and what was that all about? But it's true that a lot of people have experienced that, and that's why, that's one of the reasons I believe that there are places, especially in the United States, have been sort of isolated from the rest of the land by the government, because there's places like that all over. And for example, in the Grand Canyon, it's a national park, and we have a lot of places that we would like to go, but we cannot, as Indian people, to not only to get the certain minerals and certain medicine, but also to get to go through our expansion of our connection, and we're not allowed to anymore And so, especially places where there's a lot of UFO activity. And the UFO, in my study, are those type of forces that are in existence at those type of places, where you can actually go in there and be in a different dimension. And especially out here in a place called Sedona, they have a lot of vortices out there. But yeah, I can pretty well agree with him that some people have actually experienced those things, not only by the physical forces there, but also it's an eternal places of certain gods, certain deities, certain sacred places. There's many out here in Arizona. Even I myself can't go there without proper preparation or not being assigned by the tribal priesthood of the Kachina. So some people have stumbled onto those, and some of them are very lucky that they get back. But this has always happened to a lot of people. It's being recorded more than ever.
This gentleman who's in the chat room on SBUnetwork.com, his name's Kenneth Pass. He's really coming up with a bunch of very interesting things. He asks if you could connect with him on Facebook. I don't know if you do Facebook or not, but his name is Kenneth Pass, and he's just dying to talk to you about these experiences. But you know what? I have your email. I'll email you his name, and if you have an opportunity, it seems like it would just really mean a whole lot to him. Anyway, thanks for everybody in the chat room tonight. We have about 8 minutes before our first break. I skipped the first commercial break because everything was going so good, and to be quite honest, I got bumped off my own show and was a little frustrated. So thank you for everybody chiming in. So I wanted to ask you a question about the mound builders. The mound builders, the mounds were where the Indian tribes were mostly achieving the contact. And are you familiar with Nancy Red Star?
Oh, yeah. She's a good friend of mine, too, yeah.
I kind of figured she was. She was talking about it also, that the mounds were the places where E.T. would visit the most. I mean, they visited and frequented the whole, desert Southwest. A lot of people in the chat are talking about the Four Corners area. I'm sure you have plenty to say about that. But my next question, or couple questions, is explain to us the significance of the mounds, their construction, their potential alignment with the stars. Did ETs tell them exactly where to build the mounds because of upwellings of earth energy, power centers, vortices, etc.? What would be the best way to explain what I was trying to explain?
Well, I've been to the Serpent Mound in Iowa?
Ohio.
Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to be leaving here after the show to catch my plane tomorrow morning. But I have it's everywhere like that for the mound builders and a lot of sacred places. It's very sacred geometry, and it's also connected with not only the above the world connection, especially the stars, but also the directions of the planet especially in the magnetic side of it, and also below. One of the things that people do not really take into consideration is that in our history, especially the Pueblo people and all the other indigenous tribes throughout the Americas, is that there's actually underground rivers, which is kind of hard to visualize, but a lot of those were laid out also within those directions. And I have tried to really study especially the Serpent Mound, and especially, and all of those are really related to the solstices, the equinoxes, and also the landmarks, and also the star system. There's a lot of layouts now, especially with the latest in satellite technology, and so I think there's more that's going to be coming out. I'm going to be working on a project to be presented next month that will be based upon that. Why did the American indigenous tribes lay out the systems, and who told them to do that, and how did they come up with such a sacred geometric direction in XYZ directions? So, but I will be there again Saturday. And it's every time I go there, I've been there now for about 3 years, and I get a different type of, I guess, information just standing there on that. But these were built according to even the Indians that were there. They were already there when they got there. Those people that, according to the history. But again, nobody really knows. It's just like saying, well, who made the pyramids? Nobody really knows, or how did they make them? So that's basically what it amounts to. And if you look at all the different shrines, the different mounds throughout the whole planet, they were there way before the people that finally existed over there. But I cannot give you a straight answer or any theory right now, because it is very complex. But there are certain things that are in alignment now, especially when they have been working at it for a number of years, especially the astronomers, the mathematicians, even the philosophers, and spiritual people have explained it in many different ways, but it's all connected with a total universe, so to speak, or the star systems, and with all the underground, inner world type things. The American indigenous tribes believe in the inner world. That's why when they talk about Bigfoot, they say, well, he's from the inner world. And so that, but right now I cannot give you any specific answer, because I've been studying it for a number of years. And it's very difficult, because information, you have to really go in there and concentrate on that. So, but they are very sacred. They are very sacred.
You know, what's interesting is the Maya called the underworld Xibalba, which is spelt with an X. And the literal translation, as discovered by Dr. Linda Sheely, who studied the Maya, was there in Mesoamerica, Mexico, Central America for, I think 2 or more decades, studying their language, studying their culture. And what she ultimately discovered is that the term Xibalba, it did mean the underworld, but it also translated into the Milky Way, as if you go through a sipapu or a space-time portal in the Earth plane and end up somewhere out in the cosmos, which is pretty fascinating to think about. Also, the Jicarilla Apache, they believe that they came from inside Agartha, or inner Earth, as opposed to what a lot of mainstream archaeologists will tell you, that they actually migrated over from the Bering Strait. And they're just not believing that. They're not feeling that at all. And you know what? I tend to think they're probably right, and that mainstream archaeologists are probably wrong. But hey, folks, this is Reverend John M. Polk. You're listening to Quantum Hologram Matrix right here on Spaceboy Universe, SBUnetwork.com. Dr. Kitai was able to chime in earlier with the Phoenix Lights. And we have Zuni Elder, Clifford Mahooty. We're going to go into our first commercial break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Stay with us.
Hello, this is Kathleen Martin, and I'm pleased to introduce to you today my new book with Stanton Friedman, Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers. Did you know that for years the general public has been disinformed about the reality of UFOs? There's significant evidence that the U.S. government has covered up the alien presence through misinformation, distortion, obfuscation, and ridicule. Some prominently politically connected scientists have engaged in the cover-up. This effort has been supported by a few professional writers who have successfully misled the media and the bulk of the scientific community into the belief that scientists who've been persuaded by the evidence are unscientific charlatans, fanatics, and kooks. Well, this book will set the record straight. You will learn about the history of government involvement in the study of UFOs, their findings, their decision with the help of the CIA to cover it up, and who exactly took part in the cover-up. There are many interesting cases that we've written about in this book and loads of quotes so that you will be able to actually follow the lead to the archival documents where we found this information. There's nothing that we're covering up. There's almost no speculation, and I think that you're going to enjoy this exciting book that the two of us have written.
Ever seen an extraterrestrial? It can be hard to believe they exist unless you've seen one for yourself. What if I told you I've seen them my whole life, but have never had a witness who shared the encounter with me? Now, what if I told you I saw 4 of them, 2 with blue skin, and there are over 20 witnesses to this CE5 event? My new book, The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, documents actual accounts from real witnesses, many of which have gone on record to attest to this otherworldly reality. Be a part of the quantum paradigm shift that is taking place right now. Go to rev-john-polk.com to get your copy of The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, on sale right now at johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com.
This is Reverend John M. Polk. I'm your host of Quantum Hologram Matrix, Spaceboy Universe, SBUnetwork.com. Do apologize about some technical problems earlier. I was quick to blame my producers, and it turned out that it was my fault and my internet dropped out. So we do apologize about that. After the show is finished, we will post it on Spreaker.com. Also, you can access the show, of course, through SBUnetwork.com, but we'll post it on as many platforms as possible. Earlier in the show, we had the privilege of listening to Dr. Lynn Keatai, CEO and executive producer, Phoenix Lights Network, thephoenixlights.net. I had the privilege of meeting her and Clifford Mahooty at the UFO Congress, and it was an incredibly enlightening event, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. But the other day I was on the phone with Clifford, and I was telling him how I was going through some of the old Ancient Alien episodes that I have recorded on my DVR, and one of them was called The Visitors. It was a 2-hour-long special, and it was one of the older ones, I believe, dating back to 2010. And him and a fellow researcher by the last name of Simplicio, they're out somewhere in either Arizona or New Mexico, and they're going through these petroglyphs, and many of them tell a story, if not a number of stories, or a lot of them are just representations of what the natives saw. Can you tell us about your expedition that you took with Mr. Simplicio?
Yes, this was, like you say, I think it's 2010 when I first started working with Ancient Aliens. And it's about, I'd say about 6 or 8 miles from the Pueblo of Zuni, New Mexico, on the west side. northwest side, and that's the one that's really easily accessible. You can actually drive your car up to those petroglyphs. Of course, the others are higher up, and you kind of have to hike into those other canyons. But so they've always been there for centuries, I believe. And we went over there just to give them the idea of what a lot of these petroglyphs were telling us, or at least our historians etched those on the rocks. And they're all over Zuni, and of course all over the Southwest. You go up to Utah, Arizona, and even all around New Mexico. But one of the things that was also revealed lately is that there's also some Chinese petroglyphs along the sides of the American Indian indigenous tribes. And we didn't see any at Zuni, but our history also tells us that there used to be a colony of Chinese right next to our village way back in the... They probably came about, maybe about 1400 AD, but I had a chance to talk to the Dr. John Rushkamp Jr., and he wrote a book about this Asian connection, and he's got a fabulous book that I met him last fall. So there's a lot of combination of many different people that have walked through here, even in a place called Las Lunas, New Mexico, outside of Albuquerque on the southwest side. There's also some writings on there, on the rock, that nobody really knows, but they think that they're either Hebrew or Celtic. So there's a lot of journeys that have been made. One of the things that's very interesting is that about 2,500 BC, there was a Chinese monk, Buddhist monk, that came out here in the Southwest, and he also recorded a lot of events. So, but most of the petroglyphs, or what the Indians at that time saw mostly from the sky. At that particular place where we were at on Ancient Aliens, we were walking by there checking out all the other sites, and we were walking around there, and we're coming back. We didn't see it until the sunlight changed, and there was actually an ET-looking etching on there that was about 3 feet tall on the rock. And we also took pictures of that. I don't know if Ancient Aliens showed that, but it's a real ET with a long neck, short arms.
Yes. Yeah, I saw it.
Big head. You saw that?
I did, and spaceships too.
Yeah, spaceships are on the other side of where we were at. You have to go up, clear up to maybe about halfway up a butte, which is about maybe about 400 or 500 feet high. Halfway up there, there's actually a spacecraft that's coming down at an angle. I mean, like a flying saucer. But it's always been recorded, and they come in different shapes. For example, now people are very familiar with orbs nowadays. Those are the big ones that used to come way back. Even 1970s, when I used to go home on weekends, I would see them coming out of a canyon, and those would be big orbs. And when Dr. Kitai was talking about the Phoenix Lights, but in the Phoenix Lights, they were in a formation. Most of those that come out around there are just single ones, and then they usually have maybe 2 or 3 that will be smaller than the big one, but they would not make formations. But there are so many things that has happened throughout the ages, and so we are very familiar with it. It's part of our spirituality system, and they're part of also the Watchers and the Guardians. And they also are they warn the people about what is what is about to come, or it's a warning type signal, whether it be by weather, whether it be by other, maybe something that is happening in the sky. So those were what my grandfathers taught me when I was a young man. And one of the things that used to be in my generation is that before you get initiated into the different orders of the tribe, all kids are told not to look up to the sky. And so if you, even to this day, if you went back and you take about a 8 or 9-year-old kid and you tell them, say, hey, why don't you look up in the sky? And they'll automatically tell you, you're not supposed to look up in the sky. So that's still there because at nighttime it's their domain, but in recent times they've been appearing during the daytime. And I think I made a comment one time in one of the interviews. He said a lot of that stuff is usually military, and a big majority of it. Some of them it's a very, very small percentage are UFOs, and even a smaller percentage are unexplained phenomena. So, and what has happened on the Indian reservations now is that, especially on the Navajo and the Zuni, Hopi, and other places, is that the military has sort of found a home, and we don't really know where they come from. If there's a UFO that appears, within 5 minutes, they got these giant helicopters, these black helicopters would appear. We don't know. I tried to figure out where they come from because Albuquerque, New Mexico is the closest Air Force base, and it's about 150 miles as the crow flies. So how could they be there in 5 minutes after a UFO appears? And so there'll be at least 2 or 3 of them that would appear. So it is really amazing where they come from immediately. I don't know whether they got bases on there or they're on standby somewhere. We don't know where they come from.
You know, it's interesting because there's rumors, as rumors go, that there's a joint ET military base buried in the mountains out there somewhere, that there's more than likely one in the Sandia mountain range. There's definitely one in the Archuleta Mesa and all those mesas. Not necessarily joint bases, but one may be military, one may be extraterrestrial, but it is rumored that there's some bases where we actually cohabitate and that ET is pretty much in control, but we both have joint bases. Have you heard anything like that before?
Well, I've been studying this since I was a kid, and I've always been interested in that since way back when I was in junior high and high school back in the 50s. And I have done a lot of research, especially like Archuleta Mesa, and the Apaches now have their festival every year. They're going to have one right in the weekend of July 4th. I was invited last year, but there's a lot of people that are disinformation experts.
Right.
That the reason I didn't go last year was because I didn't want to be involved with that person that claimed to be in that Archuleta Mesa Acadian base that they dug into and had a fight down there. And I work with a lot of different researchers and people that know what they're talking about, especially the people that used to be in the top secret jobs. And so a lot of that stuff that they make up, I start researching it, and I don't know whether it's still the disinformation or it's just something that, because you can't believe anything anymore. Like, for example, at Dr. Kitai's meeting Sunday, people were interested to know if there's going to be any disclosure. And I told the crowd there, I said, the United States government is not going to disclose anything.
No.
Because you will mess up their, in my opinion, lies that they have made throughout the years. And if they, first of all, they're not going to disclose anything. You remember that disclosure project about 3 or 4 years ago?
I do.
Mock hearings in Washington, D.C. But I know that there's a lot of bases. For example, at Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, where the Estrella Mountains are, where the UFO activity is, there is a very high, I guess you might say, above top secret type individual had invited me one time to talk about an alien base. And through many different, it's sort of like connecting with certain people, and it had to be, we had to play it real tight-lipped and everything else, but they still found out that I had met a certain person, and that certain person was not allowed to ever talk to me again through the go-between.
Really?
So there are a lot of places, and I have been out there in wilderness areas. For example, the Gila Wilderness is in New Mexico, where you can't even go in there, except you can backpack in there. But there are places that I have seen throughout the years where they actually have dug out, isolated those places, and we're not even allowed to go there anymore, just like the national parks. I think the latest one is the Mount Graham, where the Vatican built that binocular telescope on sacred San Carlos Apache land outside of Tucson. I worked on that project way back about 20 years ago, and I did not realize that they put in that big telescope right in what might be called a vortex or stargate or whatever the term would be. And when they opened it up, I was talking to somebody, and when they opened it up, they said that the flying saucers actually blocked out the view that they were supposed to look through into whatever dimension that they were trying to look into. So, but
really?
So there's a lot of things that are happening. People actually volunteer to talk, provided that I don't say where I get this information. So, but there are a lot of things that are happening right now, and I think it's my own opinion is that the American Indians knew about these things way long time ago, and that's why they took them off of those lands, because they were secret sites. If you look at the Nazis during World War II, even before World War II started, they were looking for those holy places and sacred places and sacred objects throughout the whole world. And the same thing is happening here. Of course, we took some of their guys over here under Operation Paperclip, so we really don't. Nobody really knows. And for anybody to say that, well, when I become a president of the United States, I'm going to blow this wide open, it's not going to happen.
Right. Hey, one of my producers is on the line. His name is Eric, at Awakening Man on Twitter, and he always has some good questions to spin at our guest. So Eric, Clifford Mahooty, Eric, he was the real tall guy that I was hanging out with at the UFO Congress. I don't know if you remember him, but he was there, and you got to meet him, and he'd like to ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay, Eric.
Yes, can you hear me okay? You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yes, Clifford, if you don't mind, I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I respect how you're delivering the message, because I'm just imagining in my mind that, you have this knowledge, this ancient knowledge, and then you've done your research. I'm guessing you know what's going on, but yet you still have to deal with the quote unquote and the whole government game that's being played. So you have to be a bit of a diplomat. Is that about right, would you say?
Well, I really don't know. I was a government man for a number of years, but as long as I tell the truth and talk the truth, I think that when you there's no other way. I was taught that way by my grandfathers and the orders that I belong to. You have to be very truthful. Maybe I have to be politically correct, but there's no other way to explain it except, I'm not going to color it. I'm not going to do anything because that's just the way that I have done it, and I don't know. Maybe I'll put it this way. I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me anything. And so I look at it, I decipher it, I analyze it, and I said, this is what I believe. But I don't really, because I'm not in any campaign to become popular or whatever. People want to know, ask me a question. I'm as straightforward as I can. But they don't have to like it. I mean, that's, they can go get another answer somewhere else. So that's the way I look at it. I try to be nice.
Well, you do a good job of it. I want to ask you, going back to when you were a child, what part of the United States were you growing up in?
I was born in Zuni, New Mexico, which is about, in the Four Corners area. Okay. Where Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico come together. If you go down that line on the Arizona, New Mexico side, and if you are familiar with Route 66, Main Street of America, it's now I-40. We're about 30 minutes south of I-40 on the Zuni Indian Reservation. We were very isolated for a long time, but we still are.
I've heard stories of people that have driven on the Route 66 at late in the evenings. And can you share any stories that you've heard maybe in the last 10 years that would be kind of fascinating for the listeners to hear about experiences people might have had driving along the Route 66?
Yeah, there's two types of experiences that they have. First of all is that the UFOs, when they, especially at nighttime, and the other one is the bad stuff that they call, what they call in the Navajo Nation, the skinwalkers, the one that morph into different animal life forms. They actually interfere with the traffic on that big highway, and I'm sure that a lot of truckers have seen a lot of them. And even some of the people that I know have told me about their experiences. But there's a lot of anomalies that occur, and even people that did not know what they were, or maybe even as far back as 40, 50 years ago, they just started coming out and telling me about those experiences they had way back when. But there's a lot of phenomenon that happens that is unexplained, and I think the reason is that it's very isolated. If you take off from a place called Gallup, New Mexico to Flagstaff, Arizona, it's desert out there. There's nothing out there. And you can see in all directions, and there's no lights to mess up the lights in the sky. and there's mountain ranges way away from that main area, but you cannot see that. Up close. So there's a lot of things that happen. And there's also times where people talk about missing time. And I don't know whether they go into a time warp or what they go through, but they don't realize that, they've been, all of a sudden they're sort of like wake up and, that an hour or two has passed and they're at the next town. They don't even remember how they got there. And I used to laugh at them, but it's not a laughing matter anymore.
Well, I want to ask you about these skinwalkers. Now, do you believe that these are actual physical forms, that they're shape-shifting, that they're physical? So, for example, if somebody hit one on the freeway, I mean, you would see a dead physical body there?
No, they don't. They morph back into, according to the Navajo Ranger, they morph back into a human being, or they just disappear. It's the same old story of throughout the ages of how the werewolf type thing, but they actually exist. I had remember that lady that talks about the Jin Gaili?
Yes, I do.
And she talked to me at that convention where we were at the UFO convention. She was just trying to verify a lot about that stuff, and I said, yeah, it's been going on for centuries. It's part of the whole yin and yang, the negative and the dark, and the light forces. So they're part of the system, and it's all over the world. They practice that. I guess the bad arts all over the world, and it's part of the whole societal system throughout the ages. And it's getting worse now, simply for the reason that there's no more law. I mean, in the old days, the people took the law into their own hands, and they took care of their problems. But now, they're protected, especially in the United States. They're protected by constitutional rights, ACLU, and they can actually protect a person that has been caught doing harm to people and their animals and their belongings. And there's volumes and volumes of information, especially the Navajo Rangers. I don't know if you met them at the convention.
Well, I want to switch it over to the topic now. I've always been fascinated with the entire multiverse, universe, ET, UFO phenomena, but there is a Bigfoot phenomena, obviously, and in the past I wasn't as convinced that I'd have to say now. I would say yes, I believe Bigfoot exists. Can you share your thoughts or feelings about Bigfoot? Because I've heard some stories about what's going on there in the Dulce, New Mexico farmlands.
Well, Bigfoot has always been around. It's part of our culture. If you look at any of the rock drawings or the petroglyphs, you'll always see Bigfoot amongst the other living things and or at least the depiction of other living animals, different types of animals, different phenomena. Some of the insects that or at least that look like insects, are not really insects. They're phenomenon that they used to see in the sky. And Bigfoot is one of the most common one if you look for it along with the petroglyphs. And even to this day, there's so many of them out here, especially on the Navajo, up in what they call the Chusca Mountains, up in the northern part. And then also even in Zuni, where I'm from, and all around there. And then up over here in Arizona called the Mogollon Rim. And there's a lot of sightings that have occurred throughout the years. In Zuni, I know of two of them way back in the 1950s, before we had electricity and it used to be dark, and there used to be one that used to come down. And I have a lot of people that are actually researchers on the Navajo reservation that have actually had encounters head-on with Bigfoot. And I was talking to a lady in Albuquerque about a year ago, and she started talking about it when she was about 12 years old. They had this big family gathering, and up there in the middle of the desert, the reservation, and they heard something that was coming through the trees, and it was a family reunion, so there's a whole bunch of kids there, and of course the parents were having a cookout, and he said that the Bigfoot came to the family, and it stood there for a while, and then it sort of like growled, and he pulled out a sapling. And she was really describing it, and she was kind of laughing about it. But this occurs a lot of times, but a lot of things are not reported. You know,
yeah, I believe that totally.
I've had a lot of experience, at least two of them, when I was on a hunting trip, and even as late as last year, I was talking to one of the kids in Zuni, and they went turkey hunting, which is next month in April, in a place right next to the Gila Wilderness. And they woke up one morning. He went up to do his thing in the morning, and about before the sun came up. And you know how kids are; they like to play with each other, and you know how they go and belch and all that. So he was trying to scare his friends that were sleeping in the tent. So when he pulled that stunt on them, and the Bigfoot sounded from the mountain there, he said they just roared, and it just about like shook everybody up, and all the kids woke up because of that noise. And and when it roared the second time, they just threw all their tents and all their stuff in the truck, and they took off. But these are big kids. They're 18, 20, 30-year-old, 22-year-old kids. And they had all the guns, and they had all that whatever, but they couldn't handle the screams. But there's so many experiences that is now occurring all over the Indian reservations, especially up in the north. The northwestern tribes up around Yakima, Washington State, California, and the Hoopa Indians up there in Northern California. I used to work with them many years ago, and that's Bigfoot country. And they have stories and stories about Bigfoot. So it's nothing new to us. It's just that because of overpopulation and also the degradation of the vegetation and animal life, they have really become apparent at places where, because they're overpopulated, you go up to any mountains and there's houses all over the place, and that was their domain. So I think in a way they're kind of ticked off that they're in their habitat. So there's a lot of sightings that go on, but it's also in our history. We also have that in our religion, and he's an invisible. Again, he can. He's in a different dimension.
Well, hey, maybe after the break, I can ask you another question about that. John, do you want to let him keep going, or do you want to take a break?
Let's take our final break, and we won't have any more tonight. So, folks, Eric at Awakening Man and Reverend John Polk here on Quantum Hologram Matrix, Spaceboy Universe, SBUnetwork.com. Final break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
The Quantum Hologram Matrix Elevator is a space-time vehicle. Where can it take you, you may ask? Anywhere you wish to go, if you know how to operate it. Metaphysically, the Quantum Hologram Matrix Elevator goes up, down, side to side, backwards and forwards, but also can serve as a sipapu, or portal of transformation and transportation that forms a rainbow bridge to any multidimensional or terrestrial destination in which you desire. Tap into your universal God consciousness to open the elevator doors and welcome to your multidimensional existence inside the Quantum Hologram Matrix.
Explore the universe, explore the universe, spaceboyuniverse.com. Spaceboy. And Sirlana. Spaceboy and Sirlana. Spaceboy and Sirlana. Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sirlana on spaceboyuniverse.com.
Hey, Sirlana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe?
spaceboyuniverse.com.
There is a new pain elimination center in San Jose, California. Our method works surprisingly well because we heal the cause of the pain. Please call us at 408-253-6577. That's 408-253-6577. Or email us at angelhealing777@gmail.com. Call now.
This is Reverend John M. Polk here on Quantum Hologram Matrix, Spaceboy Universe, SBUnetwork.com, interviewing Zuni elder Clifford Mahooty. And it's been very fascinating so far. I have a couple other questions that I really want to cover before the end of the show. And Clifford and I were talking on the phone the other day, and I was speaking of one of the Ancient Alien episodes. I believe it was The Visitors, going back to 2010, where him and Don Simplicio were doing research on these petroglyphs. And one of the things that Clifford said to me that I've been talking about for years, and people get it, but it's better when other people can explain it also. And what I was saying is that what Clifford was saying on this Ancient Aliens episode is that E.T. is always there. They're just vibrating at a higher frequency, or let's say a different frequency, which renders them invisible to us because we can't see into that extra dimensional realm. But they are there. And once we realize that they are there, we can actually open up a channel of communication with them, or at least just openly receive from them, or even if we can just feel them. So, Clifford, tell us about how E.T. is there. They're just vibrating at a different or higher frequency than us.
Yeah, the way that I used to explain it is that, I think Dr. Kitai touched on it a while ago, is that, you know, that they're in a different frequency. It's just like whether it's an AM or an FM radio band, you know, there's certain frequencies that if you turn your dial, you'll catch a radio station. And you pass that one and it's gone. It's sort of like that because they've always been here. They're always with us in everyday Pueblo people life. They addressed everything, like in the morning. They when they go to the field, for example, back when they were still 100% farmers, my grandfather would go into the field and he would greet them because they're also watching his fields and they're waiting. And then if you want to go to the religious activities, we have that's why they have kivas. When you walk into the kivas, they're also in there. They're waiting for you And so you greet them, even if you're by yourself. And you sit down and you revere their presence and until everybody gets there. And that's why we do a lot of prayer systems. In all rituals, we go to the first thing that happens is that we go to our humble prayer. And in that passage, in the opening passage, they say that we are but humble people. We are at your feet, and we are at your back. So they're superior to us, and we acknowledge that because we need their powers in order to perform whatever it is, whether it be a rain dance ceremonial to bring rain from the heavens, or even in the curing process to take care of each other, to take care of our health needs, get rid of sickness, and so on. I've always said that Indians like us, human beings, we are not healers. We are only conduits using their power through their selective process for some of us to become those type of healers, and we don't have any power to heal. They're the ones that have the power, and we're just the instruments or the conduits for the laying of hands or other medicinal practices. So, for example, in another one is when they dance the Kachina, that's the only time that you actually physically see them, and all we're doing is we're imitating them because they're there. So if you kind of it's sort of like an overlay type approach. There's physical Kachina, you become one of them, but you become the spirit of that Kachina, and so you're no longer addressed as a human being. You're addressed as a Kachina, which is also an ET. And they have those, and it's very amazing, especially out here in the desert where a weather reporter would say, actually weather would say, well, there's going to be no rain for the next 2-3 weeks. And when they get together, they start singing, and the Kachinas, and they start singing songs and whatever. Second or third dance, clouds form and it rains. So it's a phenomenon that's been going on for centuries, because all we're doing is we're asking the gods to provide us by their power that they have, and ask them for the rain and all the good things to help mankind, especially Mother Earth. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was perfect, actually. So, I was researching some of the festivals, some of the rituals that the Zuni take place in, and one of them is called the Shalako Festival, where I guess the high priest, the shamans, the elders are dressed as Kachinas to celebrate the arrival of the gods on Earth, and in effect do a big reenactment with song, dance, maybe some drumming. Tell us about the Shalako Festival and how important it is to the Zuni culture.
But that's held in December, close to the winter solstice, and that's a culmination of all the year activities. It's the end of the year, and it'll be the start of the moon after that, will be the start of the next year, and it's a reenactment of the different. Those Shalako are actually like space vehicles. And if you want to look at more information, you get on the International UFO Convention. I did that presentation in 2015, and I explained that whole Shalako concept using both the technological side of it, the scientific and also the spiritual and the ritual part of it. And I explained it's a 2-hour presentation. And it's on the International UFO. They got a DVD on that they recorded, and it explains all the steps that we have to we go through every year. And what it is it's a reenactment of bringing the different. See, we believe in panspermia because according to that ritual, the different plants and animals were brought in from other star systems, galaxies, whatever. And those are the vehicles that they brought them with, and it's shaped like a missile. And I got one that's standing right next to the Saturn V rocket. And I have a friend that's an aeronautical engineer, and it's got the same mechanisms in there as like a space vehicle. You know, it's got the roll, the pitch, and the yaw, and it's got a pilot and a co-pilot, and it doesn't have any arms like a regular Kachina does, and it looks like a capsule in a way, and they're usually about 8 or better feet tall, and you've probably seen them if you Google Shalako. You'll see a lot of pictures of those. And it's a reenactment of when the gods came over here, or the ETs came over here to juvenate the earth. And they actually meet the people of Zuni, and they go through prayers and prayers. It's a whole week, almost a whole week of prayers and dance and song. And every group gets together. The medicine societies do the singing. The Kachina groups, there's 6 kivas from different cardinal directions, and also other festivities that go on. And it's a real complete reenactment of the beginning of the civilizations of the Zuni people and how to carry out not only the practices of mankind, but also the different branches, things connected with overall Zuni way. And there's a lot of feast that goes on, a lot of preparation. It takes a whole year to prepare. And the prayers are recited. It talks about the creation, where they came from, why they came from. Gives all the species of all the different animals, all the species of the trees, the plants, all the species of all the vegetables. And that prayer probably takes the one group, they come from a different galaxy or star system. I think the prayer is about 6 hours long. And the other one is maybe about an hour, but they talk real fast. It's like a tape recording. First time I heard it, it's like a transmission, and then halfway through there, then it goes into a higher frequency. And if you took an instrument to take down the prayers, and it'll be just like a real broad spectrum in different frequencies. When they're talking about where they came from, how they came, why they're here, and how to carry on the life. And then we present them with a lot of different, what we call payments. We cut prayer sticks, and then we go through prayers, and we greet them. It's the greeting of the gods between the people, the priesthood, the shaman, you name it, and then they have usually a brand new house every year where they come in, and then the next day they leave and they go back to we actually have a reenactment of the spacecraft taking off right there on the side of the river in Zuni, and they go back and forth, and they go to the east, and that's their songs are like that. And then the next 4 days, then they have the different Kachina groups come in there and they celebrate with the people, and it's a big celebration. So I would recommend that go on. International UFO Congress, and there's a the presentation I made 2 years ago. It is called a Zuni and the Star People Connection, I believe is the title of that. It's in their catalog, and so you can order it from it. It explains all the different scientific and also the Zuni version of what they are. And so because of my background, I compared with all the different systems. You know, it's sort of like the space program that we went through in the Apollo series and so on. You know, you have a ground crew, you got the support team, and you got different systems. And I also talked about the communication system that each one of them has. Each one of those Shalako, there's 6 of them. Each one has their own call letter, and it's sort of like in Morse code. But it's very interesting. I think that I would recommend that. I don't have any because I gave most of it. I think I gave all of it away, but you can get it through the Open Minds, the International UFO Congress. It's in their catalog.
So once again, folks, go back into the archives of the International UFO Congress, not just this past year, 2017, but go back in years past, and more specifically, year 2015, and you can actually locate the archive and potentially purchase a DVD of Clifford Mahooty talking about that. And I said it wrong. I said Shalako Festival. Hey, Clifford, we have just a few minutes left before I want to wrap it up. But I wanted to ask you about the Grand Canyon and the reverence that the Zuni people paid towards the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon has always been a refuge. It was a refuge at the last the turnover of the earth, and that's where they survived. There's actually many rooms, and there's basically the Hopi, the Zuni, and of course the people that are down still in the canyon, the Havasupais, and also what was a conglomerate of the Coconino tribes, which is there's a forest service. a national forest named Coconino National Forest. And that was a group of Pueblo people, but each one of them had their emergence. The Hopi emergence is through the Sipapu. All the Indians call their emergence Sipapu. And so I don't care whether it's in the northern Pueblos, they got their Sipapu at Colorado, or most of it is in the the west. And the Hopi is the one that's at the confluence of the Big Colorado and the Little Colorado. And the Zunis are downstream. I don't know whether it's Ribbon Falls or Rainbow Falls. I can't decipher it at that time. I've never been there, so I really don't. Only the priesthood and certain people go there every so often. But that the Grand Canyon was a refuge, and you probably heard about the Hopi being saved by the Ant people.
I have.
Ant people took care of them, and there's many different stories about how they emerged after the floods receded. And so that there's so many stories, and there's been many stories put out. But the basic thing is that we did a expedition about 4 years ago, and the start point was way back in 1908 under the Kincaid expedition. Kincaid was hired by the Smithsonian, and it's on the Colorado that comes from the north, from Utah, and on the west side of that is there was a big hole, or a sort of like a tunnel, I guess, at that time. And the facts of the case is that they took out a lot of Buddhist and Egyptian artifacts, and the Smithsonian is actually the one that took all those artifacts. And so when we were researching that, after we found where it supposedly was, and the Smithsonian told us that they had dumped them in the ocean. Those statues and Buddha, and so that's their usual game. But if you want to look at some more of this, we updated it. It's on YouTube. It's called Expedition to Sipapu, and it's on YouTube. So that's a story of what we did. But there's so many different stories, and because a lot of that was thousands and thousands of years ago. So penguins have been around for a long, long time. I mean, not what the archaeologists and the anthropologists say. Like, oh, they've only been here for 5,000 years. No, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of years ago, and that's what our history tells us. When they talk about, when our history talks about when the earth was still like clay, and this has already been proven, where they have dinosaur tracks right next to the human tracks, and so that's a millions and millions. So man has been around for a long time. It's just that mainstream anthropology and archaeology doesn't want to accept that, I don't think. Because they really don't know, and knowing about science is very hard to decipher. However, based upon our oral history, there's been a lot of things that have been revealed, even to this day. That a lot of I talked to a lot of Hopi people, but they carry on their tradition. Even the younger people also know their history. So we're accumulating a lot of those stories among ourselves, and we also have them on certain people come on there and record them. So there's been quite a bit of information that has been transferred now. So that's basically what's happening.
Okay, hey Clifford, I know that you have to hop on a plane here soon. We're about to wrap up the show, but please share with us, any website, any speaking engagements that you have coming up, conferences, YouTube videos, etc. Before we wrap up the show.
Well, one of the things that working with a person by the name of Robert Dakota in Sedona, it's called the worldviewzmedia.com, and we have lectures usually about every month. We have a grand tour that's going to be happening at the end of May. We're going to go to all the sacred sites like Chaco, all the different petroglyph sites where people have never gone before. And so that's one. And then the other one that I'll be there at the end of April would be the New Life Expo. I'm going to talk about the sacred geometry and the layouts of the Pueblo people, and how they set out their structures and all the things related with it. The sun dagger phenomenon, how they went about putting in their cities at the ley lines and also the underground water systems. And still to this day, there's a lot of distortion going on underneath. I think that's because of the different projects that we don't see. And so that, and also how they laid out the whole concepts using especially out here in the southwest Orion Belt concept. just like the pyramids, and also other constellations. And so we will be talking about that. So we have a lot of people that come in from different places, and we have a good mix of them. We have a Hopi elder like myself that we talk, and there's a video on YouTube. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's was a person by the name of Robert Bingham, and it's under androids. It's a Kachina that comes into Hopi every 4 years, and it's exactly, I think this is recorded in Northern California, and I saw that the other night. It's a real phenomenon. It's got two orbs that are in the head. Actually, it spins 360 degrees. So that's on YouTube. But we talked about that. We haven't really deciphered it yet because the Hopi people, it came during their being ceremony, and the other one is that when they had those big floods in California, and which wiped out a lot of drought. Of course, it did a lot of damage too, but the Kachinas are still there. I mean, they've always been there. They always will be here. So that it looks like a Kachina. I haven't really deciphered it yet. We're analyzing it right now. But we did have a talk about it 2 weeks ago. So that's one thing that you might want to your audience might want to look at. But I will be in Serpent Mound starting tomorrow or Friday. And it's going to be an experience, too, because there's a lot of things that is happening not only in the outer space, but also inner space, inside the world. A lot of people haven't accepted it yet, but there's also the inner world. And that's where a lot of your UFOs come out of nowadays, undersea UFOs, underground UFOs. And that place that the Estrella Mountains that Dr. Kitai talked about, we have had a lot of experiences where the UFOs go into those mountains. They actually go into there. And there's a lot of footage on those on different websites. But it's happening. It's increasing everywhere. And I believe that the reason it's happening is because we have lost our way, and we're fighting among ourselves again. And that's basically the messages that we receive, and also that we're not respecting Mother Earth, of the destroying of all the things, especially the water, because those are the people that take care of the water and the well-being, the happiness of planet people, and so that's why they're appearing more. And of course, you got a mix of your military stuff, your secret operations, but those are pretty well. It's a given, and they also imitate those two to keep us still in fear and control. So that's basically what I believe in.
Well, hey, I know that you'll enjoy yourself at Serpent Mound up in Ohio, and it's interesting that there's an old crater from a meteorite there from thousands of years ago that was full of iridium, which is used on the space shuttle, and other precious minerals, iron ores, elements, etc., that are not indigenous to this planet. So there's definitely something to that mound. So, hey, folks, a special thanks to Zuni Elder Clifford Mahooty and Dr. Lynn Kitai of the Phoenix Lights, and everyone that chimed in on chat tonight. And thank you all for another mind-expanding escapade that stretched the boundaries of human consciousness. Hologrammers, please follow me on Twitter at Reverend Polk, and my show at QH Matrix, hashtag QH Matrix, and on Facebook, Marcus Polk. And don't forget, my books are available on johnpolkmedia.com. That's johnpolkmedia.com. 10 p.m. this Saturday, and every Saturday is Spaceboy Universe. Explore the universe this Saturday with Spaceboy and Sirlana. And we'll see you right here next Wednesday as we'll be interviewing Misha Johnston, who is a lifelong experiencer, a seer into extra-dimensional realms, and a survivor of the MK Ultra program. Now, as we collectively circumnavigate the outer perimeter of perceived reality in the quantum hologram matrix, be a hologram, and we'll see you next Wednesday.